Hello again and welcome back, FreightWaves friends and fans and neighbors, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, which you know what that means. It means it's hump day. It means it is the highest volume in the weekly cyclical cycle for truckers and drivers. And today we are going to fill up our time with you, telling you about weather, the likes of which I have never seen on a sonar map. So Nick Austin, chief meteorologist, is going to fill us in on that. Then we're making the inaugural debut of one of our market experts, Donny Gilbert. And finally, Zach Strickland, Sultan of Sonar, is going to tell us what the CAS index is all about, expenditures, costs, and how does that connect to diesel and the cost of oil off the rack and retail. So let's get started. Thanks for coming aboard, Nick.
Hello, Chad. Hey, we got all this messy weather. Like you said you haven't seen the map quite like this, right? In some time.
I have never in all my days.
Never. But look at about the eastern third of the U.S. We're talking about rain from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Ohio River Valley. The Northeast is going to see a messy mix of weather. Rain, snow, sleet, some areas of freezing rain up in the Northeast today as well. Now, during the nighttime, it's just going to turn pretty much all to rainfall.
Okay.
But
that's relief.
But it's going to start off as just kind of that messy mix, and that means that rain and slush, that'll all kind of refreeze overnight as temperatures start to drop on the backside of the storm. So folks will have to watch out for that across the Northeast, also parts of the Midwest, the Great Lakes areas.
Well, pretty much across the entire United States,
really,
which is east of the Mississippi.
That's right, and could be some localized flooding in parts of the South too. So there's been a lot of heavy rain across the South, some severe thunderstorms as well. So we'll have to watch out for that. And we've had some snow up in the Northwest. So this is basically more snow, and they're used to that this time of the year. But these snowstorms almost always cause delays for drivers. Of course, they increase the risk for accidents, no matter how prepared the drivers are and they're following chain laws. Some of these storms can really cause a lot of trouble, not just the snowfall, but the wind. And if you look over here, this is right around eastern Minnesota and into western Minnesota, rather, eastern parts of the Dakotas. Right in that area.
Okay.
Nothing on the map, but it's going to get really, really windy there later today and tonight. We're talking about blizzard conditions. Not a lot of snow falling, but there's snow on the ground. So that means in those areas, the wind's going to blow the snow around everywhere. The wind's going to make it really hard on the drivers just to, they're going to be rocking in the breeze, that's for sure.
Well,
so they'll have to watch out.
It doesn't look like a hot market up there. So
that's true.
But if you happen to be up in the remote north of the United States, right, watch out for the blizzard.
Highest impact areas will be out east and then in the mountains of the Northwest.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Nick Austin, ladies and gentlemen, talking about disruptive weather for 2 days in a row here. And it's a crazy time. If you're, just slow down if you're driving in the rain across a whole bunch of the United States. And if you're way out west and you just can't get anywhere, you might want to just settle in, maybe do a little skiing for a day or two, because boy, I hear that it's a particularly good year out there. All right, so shifting gears now, talking about volumes. Donny Gilbert, welcome, Donny.
Morning, Chad. How are you doing this morning?
Great. It's great to have you on, one of our brand new market experts. And what is your cup of tea? What's your expertise?
I'm a market expert joining the team, analyzing data from the stance of a broker.
Okay. And why in the world would a shipper use a broker, Donny?
Well, a broker have caught a heavy rap over the years because they're similar to a middleman in the retail value. Nobody likes the middleman. So carriers, not a big fan of brokers, but they've become more and more valuable to shippers over the years. Let's say you're a small shipper.
Okay.
And you need to run your own freight a couple of loads a day. You can use a broker and probably eliminate some of your costs of having a few extra employees. You need a compliance employee. A compliance employee is going to make sure that a carrier is a true and real carrier. They have to do due diligence on those carriers to make sure they have DOT and MC numbers, to make sure they have proper insurance, to make sure their loads are going to be protected.
Just like a couple of loads a day. Would be like a small shipper?
A very small
maybe
shipper.
like Little Debbie? like out there in Collegedale?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
that'd be a small shipper.
And so that'd be important, the liability. They want to make sure that there's insurance covering their loads.
Yeah.
And definitely make sure they're real carrier, good safety records. And that's one person. Second of all, you're going to have to hire in a few people to actually find these carriers.
And all of this is where a broker steps in. They help in procuring these specified people.
If you bring in a broker, you're going to have one point of contact. And they are going to do the due diligence for you.
No wonder.
They're going to have the people go out and find carriers to come in and pick up and run your loads.
Okay.
And it might be a little bit more expensive on the freight cost at that point, but you're also saving money by not having to have a team run all those. And a warehouse manager could simply send their loads to a brokerage and have it all done. And if there's issues, which happen a lot during the loads, a breakdown, flat tire, something get behind, the brokerage firm will take care of those issues and simply communicate what happened and the results back to you in one phone call.
Well, it sounds like they're earning their keep then, right? I mean, I'm digging me some broker doing all that. Right? I mean, why are they getting such a bad rap as a middleman?
Well, their customer service values have definitely picked up over the customer service of large carriers, and that is one major plus to being with a brokerage.
Okay, well, awesome. That's very interesting. Well, what do we have pulled up here today?
Today we have our outbound tender volume index.
Okay.
This is showing the weight of loads across the U.S. Where are the loads?
And lots of hot markets, it seems like.
The deeper the blues, the more volume they have. And a lot of people have been discussing Southern California over the past few weeks. Mm-hmm. A lot of loads from the ports are entering in Southern California. Well, you're going to start seeing probably this week and over the next week or so, these loads dispersing mostly via intermodal to different rail stops across the U.S. Some big ones, Chicago.
Rail.
Harrisburg is going to supply the Northeast. People really don't want to go into New York City, New Jersey because the density of the population.
Tell me about
traffic, cars. It's terrible. So they use Harrisburg a lot.
Uh-huh.
Atlanta, Southeast. You're going to run those loads in the Southeast. And one
major hub, Atlanta. You know the original name of Atlanta? Terminus. Terminus, meaning an end and a beginning point.
Learn something new every day. And Memphis. Memphis is also a big rail stop and brings in some volume. Memphis is a bit lighter blue than the rest of them, but there's still some volume in Memphis.
Fantastic. So lots of hot markets focusing on from a rail perspective. Okay, and now we're looking at the, you've got us the OTVI, as we call it, their outbound tender volume index. Why are you pulling this up, Donny?
This is diving a little bit deeper into the Memphis market. So it might go intermodal to Memphis, but once it gets to the rail, it's probably going to go out by truck throughout the regions that are close to Memphis.
So what you've pulled up, so not to confuse our readers, it is Memphis in both cases, but the difference is the blue is the volume, right?
Correct.
And then the orange is in Memphis, and it's the tender rejections.
The tender rejection rates.
Okay.
Yes. So this tells us a little about what's going on in Memphis. We got some good volume. We're showing 155.66. And tender rejections have dropped. The indicator is actually over here, 10.554. So around about 10% of loads are being rejection, but you have a lot of good volume. So with tender rejections being lower, that means there's a lot more capacity as well to handle the volume. So not only do we have the capacity that's being shown in Memphis, the other surrounding markets, West Arkansas, Northern Mississippi, and Middle Tennessee, those trucks will also migrate to Memphis because that's the area that has the volume.
Okay.
So when those trucks migrate, capacity goes up, rates will normally take a dip. And that's where you see the tender rejection volume starting to show as it's been working its way down these past few weeks.
Something of a microcosm of the entire United States right now, would you say? Like,
yes.
Are volumes slightly falling off throughout the U.S., or was that just kind of a temporary blip? Are volumes still relatively healthy?
Volumes, I believe, are still relatively healthy. They have dropped down over the past few weeks, but they've dropped down in the 9,300 range.
All right.
So we want to hopefully hold that, but it's relatively strong for first quarter.
Okay, well, that was awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Donnie. Way to bring it. And tell us about that Memphis market and some hot markets. And now, last but certainly not least, the Sultan of Sonar, Zach Strickland. Thanks for coming back-to-back days.
Yeah, here I am again. I missed you.
Wow. I mean, I could just feel the enthusiasm. No, but you're talking about CAS, and you know what? I was asking about CAS. You know, it's like, because it's sort of like a lot of our names for Sonar. You know, it's like, you know, you kind of make sense of them. But CAS, I was like, what does that, you know, mean? And so I was asking you, the expert, and you were kind of filling me in.
Yeah.
So tell us about it.
Yeah, so the CAS Freight Expenditure Index basically measures the total freight expense, including fuel, accessorials, everything kind of lumped into one for both, you know, just about any kind of surface transportation mode in the United States. So we do have some rail presence in here as well as truckload.
All surface.
Yeah.
And this is the cost per mile, total cost per mile.
Yes, total cost per mile. And, you know, one of the things that I kind of wanted to break down today is the fact that fuel is included in this freight expenditure. So some of the, even though that volumes in the freight market, we've been talking about a lot of it's kind of cooling off over the last few days, or a few weeks, I should say, it's still kind of, you know, relatively high in terms of expense, because keep in mind, over the last couple of years, the freight market has really been a lot more volatile. So a lot of people have kind of increased their rates. The higher that you bring that ceiling, it's not going to just drop all the way off right away, even as the market cools. But the one we have pulled up right here, the freight expense, we can see that it's been gradually climbing almost every single month since 2017. We had a little dip here at the end of 2018. But
okay,
in combination with that, I have the DOE USA, which is a measure of the average retail price for diesel in the United States. And it's basically managed by the EIA, the government that collects all the information on diesel prices.
And you pulled this up to sort of indicate that there is a correlation.
I think it's pretty clean cut that you can see that there is an involvement here with the DOE.
Except for recently, boy, if you're paying... So the cost of retail fuel, I guess, would be going down right now,
correct.
While costs are rising. So what's going on right there?
There is a little bit of a lag in terms of fuel costs and fuel price, or the way that the carriers pass along this fuel price. And in my next chart, I'm kind of going to explain why this happens. So the DOE collects this information on kind of a lag. And the way that this works is they'll go out, ask everybody, what's your price? They'll report that back through. It takes them a little while. It takes about 7 to 10 days to get the price kind of calculated and pulled back in. And at the meantime, a lot of these larger carriers actually have contracts. They pay rack price,
right?
Which is essentially a wholesale price for diesel gas in the United States.
And is that ultra low sulfur diesel? Wait, that's retail. Right?
No, that's ultra low sulfur diesel rack.
Rack
price.
Okay. So that's the rack is the green.
Yes. And we see this spread right here. And this discrepancy is the difference between wholesale and retail price.
And the retail.
So there's transportation costs and all sorts of stuff buried in this number right here. The retailer, for instance, has to transport this fuel from the rack to their facilities.
Right.
And then there's also taxes. Taxes are incorporated in this value as well in the retail price. But you see right here at the very end of this chart, there's a big turn up in rack price. As anybody that monitors the oil markets knows that the WTI price has been going up over the last couple of weeks. We've recovered to over $50, which is actually good news for freight markets and anybody that's involved in it, because the oil industry has been propping up a lot of economic development over the last several years. So we want this price to actually go up. And I think if you've listened to John Kingston, our oil market expert, he definitely wants it to be over 50.
My understanding of the reason that we don't want oil to get but so low, like I think it's in the $35 to $40 per barrel range, if I'm not mistaken, is because the margins that we make from oil would then be null, and therefore they would then shut down oil production. They're fracking here in the U.S. Is some of that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, anytime that it costs too much to make a product, you basically stop making that product. So that's the point there. But
so it's raising back up. So that's
going
good
back
news.
up. But you see that the retail price has stayed down over the last little bit, whereas this one's going back up, and it's because of the lag in reporting this retail. They don't really. So the reason this is important for carriers is that they charge a fuel surcharge rate based on this price, not on this one. So anytime this goes up and this is going down, they're actually compressing their margin a little bit because they are passing along a cost based on this value and not the rack price. But the converse is also true. As the rack price dives and the retail price stays up, their margin expand a little bit.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of float.
Do you know what other prices are calculated into the CAS index? So we've got so there's fuel. What are some other maybe fixed cost or not fixed costs?
No, absolutely. There's all sorts of fixed costs, the variable cost, everything that you can imagine is buried into that the CAS index.
That's quite an important index.
Yeah. No, but it's also exposed to inflation, and like I was explaining, fuel is part of that value, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. I think I did a calculation, and it roughly explains about 20 to 30% of the CAS movement over the last little bit. Fuel cost, that is, because as the fuel rate goes up, obviously they charge more on the fuel surcharge.
Okay. Thank you so much, Zach. Thanks to all of our market experts today. We're bringing it to you each and every business day here on FreightWaves Now. So thanks for tuning in. And, we're just here to educate, here to try to deepen our, tribal logistics knowledge from a data perspective and from a narrative perspective too, giving us some context. So tune in as often as you can. We come out at 4 o'clock right on the nose Eastern time. Again, each and every business day. You can find us on FreightWaves.com with the FreightWaves Now tab. And you can also just find us on Twitter and our social media outlets. So thanks again. Stay tuned. Don't worry. Be happy.